Hello and welcome to the first episode of Market Urbanism Twitter. In this show, this is the first episode of it, so it's going to be a little sketchy. Basically, what we're going to do here is we're going to go through Twitter, and I follow a bunch of market urbanism type people on Twitter, and we're going to analyze what the latest experts are saying. So let us begin. I get a lot of questions about deleting Uber, and some New Yorkers have. The taxi crisis made people reconsider the ethics of how they get around. I use Uber when I'm with my toddler son, and there isn't an easy way to get around where I'm going by subway or bus. Market Urbanism says there are 4 times as many New York City taxi medallions as licensed medallion drivers, and many medallion owners are non-driver investors. And during surge pricing, the yellow cab driver is probably taking home less than the Uber driver. There is no ethics consumption of taxis. Alec Baldwin to moderate Judson event on gentrification. I think there's a real opportunity to stop gentrification. One home turns into 17 homes in Rego Park, Queens. That's really nice. That's really nice. I like that a lot. I like the transition. And it's really nice. I really like that. Really like that. Forget copter rides. We recommend another kind of one-seat ride from JFK. One could serve thousands at a time. Uber copter will make New York transit worse. Building a new rail line to JFK while the region has 10 times costs and dozens of other more pressing needs is the Uber copter of transit, though. I follow basic income people, but I'm not going to be talking about basic income on this show. It's just I do care about the basic income, but this is just a market urbanism show. You keep that separate. Here's President Trump calling in to CNBC and describing the Federal Reserve as very, very destructive while making a case for a rate cut. We have people, it's more than just Jay Powell. We have people in the Fed that really weren't, they're not my people. Asked if you think tech companies like Google should be broken up. Trump says, well, I can tell you they discriminate against me. People talk about collusion. The real collusion is between the Democrats and these companies because they're so against me during the election run. And Matt Iglesias says they are people he appointed. That's true, he appointed the Fed. This truck speaks for itself. $1 grilled cheese. Don't ask for a goddamn tomato slice. I swear to God, I will reach through the window, pull you inside, and hold your head against the griddle, which will be embarrassing for you. $1 grilled cheese. BBC confirms plan to make over 75s pay TV license fee. The Affordable Care Act increased insurance coverage and consumption of health care without reductions in provider access, changes in labor supply, or increased budgetary pressures in state governments at a total federal cost less than predicted. Obamacare, it's good. The Sinclair must run continues with Peter Schweitzer talking about Hunter Biden. Conservative propaganda broadcasting is most underrated force in American politics. The Sinclair model is particularly powerful because, unlike Fox News, it isn't 24/7 propaganda. These are mostly just normal broadcast network affiliates that insert little chunks of propaganda into local news feeds. Facebook removes conspiracy site Natural News. A huge move, not because Facebook just noticed this, but because it showed how much the political conditions have changed. Try to focus on market urbanism, not video game stuff, if possible. The only flag that should fly over our embassies is the flag of the USA. The gay pride flag is offensive to Christians and millions of people of other faiths, not only in this country but around the world, says Franklin Graham. Looks like Franklin Graham's a snowflake. Uh-oh. Do I follow AOC? No, I don't. I don't follow AOC. Data suggests there are more gay men in the closet than we think, that many men prefer overweight women to skinny women but are afraid to act on it, and that a lot of straight women watch lesbian porn. Proof that Americans are lying about their sexual desires. I believe that. I believe there's a lot of gay men still in the closet. I definitely. An Iranian activist published a Forum's Federalist and Daily Caller is probably a fake persona. What if instead of holding a climate change debate, moderators asked questions about climate change at regular debates, candidates incorporated climate considerations into answers to questions that weren't explicitly climate focused? That's a great idea. That's nice. Do follow a lot of market urbanism people. I don't know. There's a lot of statistic adjustments you can try to do to various income measures, but I think the life expectancy stats are pretty telling. Life expectancy is lowest in the in the South in general. Its life expectancy is lowest, and it's highest on coastal big city areas. Life expectancy is the highest. So my state of Florida is right in the middle. It's 78, 79. A click on this article sends money to big tech. And that's not right, say news publishers and lawmakers. Google made $4 billion from the news industry in 2018, study says. Journalists create the content and big tech companies are profiting off it, according to new analysis. We need to share the revenue. A jury in Ohio determined that Auburn College labeled Gibson's Bakery when students accused the business of being racist. Trump hails the victory as a major win. Critics suggest it will do little. The good news is we're actually going to find out. President Trump lies. What else is new? To secure its tariff deal with the U.S., Mexico says it's willing to consider a regional asylum system if current measures fail to stem migrant flow. 50 years after the original Star Trek went off air, William Shatner still draws lines of admirers. Job seekers do not desert the town in recent years. More 20 to 64-year-olds have moved to that area than left. A more diversified economy means industrial towns can overcome disasters more quickly than they once did. New York Times is committed to covering New York. That means holding power to account, chronicling the unnoticed, and investigating issues shaping our city. In this ad, see how our reporters revealed how and why the New York City subway system was failing. Overspending. Uncover the extent of the New York subway crisis. New York Times reporters covered every single breakdown, reviewed thousands of documents, and interviewed 300 people. According to organizers, 1 million Hong Kongers marched against the mainland China extradition bill. If this figure is accurate, it would be Hong Kong's largest demonstration since it was handed over to China in 1997. Facebook cares a lot about community. Opinion. When we think of America, we shouldn't think rule. It skews the nation's politics. National Association of Realtors invest in 2 blockchain startups. In the Big Little Lies Season 2 premiere, the past is gunning for the Monterey 5, whether they're ready or not. My mom is going to buy HBO to watch that show. My mom's interested in that show. I don't know what it's about, to be honest. Every office has a holdout who sighs, I'm just not good with technology. Here's what to do when they refuse to learn an upgraded system. Neolix is the latest player to jump into the robotic delivery vehicle race. Chinese startup Neolix is moving its autonomous delivery robots into mass production, a first in the surprisingly deep field of autonomous delivery. Since Todd Young and Chris Murphy aim to force a vote Monday that could weaken U.S. Saudi's ties and stop $8 billion in arms sales. I was married with 2 kids when I realized I'm gay. Melissa Rainey shares the intimate details of what happened after she realized she was a lesbian at the age of 36. Perusing this piece, thinking about John Dionne's most unspoken essay, thinking about how Twitter would react if excerpts from this essay ran today, perhaps spending too much time. Big Tech says Big Tech can't stay ahead of regulators by breaking itself up. Regulators are coming after Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Google, and it could get ugly. The company would benefit by acting preemptively. Opinion: for a set of organizations that preach the mantra of doing good for society, they could do no better good just now than in rethinking their structures and models to suit the world going forward and not just their gated franchises. The second half of humanity is joining the internet. That's good. Major cities in America tend to be where the LGBT are most visible. You can find them concentrated in some of the most affluent areas of such a city. They're very affluent, minority per capita. The other affluents, they have tremendous influence. A preservation battle over a vital piece of Canada's post-war architectural history is looming. A new era is due for Toronto's treasured space-age amusement park. Premier Doug Ford wants to see Ontario Place redeveloped. A preservation battle over the vital piece of Canada's post-war architectural history is looming. Interesting. New video editing technology raises disinformation worries. To diversify and lure manufacturing, southern states starting with Arkansas in 1947, began passing right-to-work laws that weakened unions, kept taxes low than in the wealthier North, and they spent less, especially on education, an average of $1,800 per student in 1960 compared with $2,700 nationwide, according to the Education Department. In part, this reflected the long shadow of slavery. In the Jim Crow era, white taxpayers and politicians resisted spending that benefited blacks, according to historians. This Wall Street Journal article on trends of South convergence is making the rounds. It's good stuff, but I have a bone to pick with this paragraph about taxes and education. It downplays how much regional poverty constrains policy choices. The rapidly growing self-storage industry has no consumer watchdog. Fines and fees abound, and people with little to their names but the possessions within are losing everything, losing all to auctions. The global tourism backlash. A surge in tourism has led to a backlash in cities where residents feel overrun. How can these cities use tourism to their benefit? Today's article is by Richard Florida and about over-tourism. Learn why Amsterdam has tried to curtail tourist shops. Milan has banned selfie sticks, and Rome has prohibited cavorting in public fountains. Today on City Lab, we have Joe, Billy, and colleagues assessing a legacy. Design with nature. How designers and planners think about ecology. Trump has claimed victory in his tariff gambit, but it's unclear how effective Mexico's National Guard will be at stopping migrants. Many migrants have found the journey to Europe is safer and much cheaper than paying smugglers to get through Mexico to the United States. Central Americans going to Europe. There's a man dropped out of college. He pulled into YouTube's far right universe, watching thousands of videos filled with conspiracy theories, misogyny, and racism. I was brainwashed. Perspective: how parenthood helped redefine pride. Can cities speed up the energy transition? Cities have rarely seen as drivers of environmental change. A number of major cities are aiming to be catalysts for the energy transition. Salesforce is buying Seattle-based Tableau software in an all-stock deal. The South's economy is falling behind. All of a sudden, the money policies that once drove the region's wealth, relatively low taxes and low wages that attracted factories and blue-collar jobs, have proven inadequate. Death and life of Sunbelt cities, says Richard Florida. Last year, Google made $5 billion from the works of news publishers via search in Google News. To put that in perspective, the entire U.S. news industry made a total of $5 billion from digital advertising last year. Sri Lanka responds to Islamic terrorism by terrorizing Muslims. With its biggest acquisition ever, did Salesforce overpay for decelerating data visualization supplier Tableau software? Kevin Durant's absence has made his value clear in a way his presence never could, and that has serious ramifications for the future of the two-time NBA Finals MVP, the Warriors, and the league at large. United Technologies is transforming into a more focused rival to giants like Boeing and Lockheed Martin. When there's only one hospital in your area, you probably know it. But the behind-the-scenes stuff patients don't see, things like syringe manufacturing, are highly concentrated around one or two companies. Whole lot of monopolies in healthcare. HBO has canceled Vice News tonight, and Vice is bringing on former New York Post publisher Jesse Angelo as an executive. Oh, I like that show. That's unfortunate. This couple runs a farm share from their Ballard driveway. Talk about being neighborly. Janine Miller and her partner trust their community enough to run plant sales on an honor system. She wins 2 community-supported agriculture farm shares and a seasonal nursery from her Ballard driveway from April through October. Her driveway is brimming 24/7 with over 100 rare varieties of tomatoes, as well as other veggies and herbs. Higher fares limit low-income households' mobility, finds MIT study of 240 SNAP-eligible riders. Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority. Your face is now your boarding pass. That's the problem, writes tech columnist. What's facial recognition at the airport really about? Immigration policy and efficiency. American citizens have the right to opt out of a growing use of face scans at the airport. America's most dynamic metropolitans. New metropolitan rankings. Investments could benefit Heartland. The 15th century guide to bookkeeping enabled the rise of modern corporations. Trump to CNBC. China will make a deal because they're going to have to. Can a cat do this? No. Contradiction at the heart of immigration restriction. A 1958 film demonstrates why Washington Dulles is still a delight for the traveler as much as the photographer of architecture historian. Heard on the street, Sprint and T-Mobile still face their biggest hurdle, the Justice Department. Prairie Style Home by Frank Lloyd Wright apprentice. Asked $3 million near New York City. That's pretty nice. The Democratic Party is protecting one of its last anti-abortion members in a safe blue district. Belgium's Commissioner for Refugees and Stateless Persons said his country considered gang victims to be unable to receive protection from the Salvadorian government and therefore eligible for asylum. The South's economy is falling behind. All of a sudden, the money. Paul Krugman says, more detail on a subject I've been obsessing about lately. Convergence of poorer regions on richer has gone into reverse. It seems as if an economic strategy based on cheap labor, small government, and de-emphasis on education has run aground. Why some Americans won't move, even for a higher salary. Understanding migration aversion using elicited counterfactual choice probabilities. Riders have long complained of poor service on King County Metro Access Paratransit. Now the county has selected a new contractor to operate the service. Riders with disabilities say they have waited an hour to access the bus to pick them up, and often taken on long and circuitous trips. At its core, Apple is no longer innovative. Apple has built its success upon a steady consumer appetite for buying every iteration of the company's latest and greatest products. Kazakhstan's choreographed election goes off script. An autocrat tries something new for Central Asia, organizing a transition in his lifetime. Fiat Chrysler agreement with Aurora Innovation underscores the heavy emphasis automakers are placing on autonomous cars. Tesla headed into the year on a high note, but the company and its chief, Elon Musk, has confronted a series of problems and a loss of investor confidence. If sports betting were legal nationally, it would generate more than $17 billion annually. Yeah, but people would lose all their money. That wouldn't be good. Why 3 CEOs in a 200-year-old King Arthur flower radical plan to maintain its reign. Trump is really unloading on the U.S. Chamber of Commerce during his CNBC interview. They have companies in Mexico. They have companies in China. He appears to have called in to CNBC after U.S. Chamber exec criticized Trump's tariffs approach. New payroll tax is pioneering experiment to help Washington State. Washington and Hawaii are experimenting with taxpayer-funded plans to help older residents remain in their homes. In 1985, nearly 20% of Americans had changed their residence within the preceding 12 months, but in 2018, fewer than 10% had. That's the lowest level since 1948, when the Census Bureau first started tracking mobility. Why some Americans won't move, even for a higher salary. There are a number of powerful psychological factors that connect people to places that mean more than money. How Golden State can get back in the series, and what a title would mean for Toronto. New report from Economic Policy and Popdemoc. More than 80% of private sector non-union workers will be covered by forced arbitration clauses in 2024, rip-off clause, and forced arbitration. The number of workers who have lost their right to fight in court is growing every year. Is Trump the favorite in 2020? Some say Donald Trump is the clear favorite for re-election, while others insist that unless the Democrats nominate Leon Trotsky. A polar bear leaps over water on ice in Canada. The animals rely on the ice for hunting, but has been melting in recent years. Nationalist movements are taking root across Europe. In a 5-part series, we ask, can the European Union survive? Where DC's subsidized housing is, and more tellingly, it's not located. Google rewards reputable reporting more than left-wing politics. Our statistical study reveals no evidence of ideological bias in the search engine's news tab. Teaching the teachers how to teach kids about climate science. Washington State is using an innovative program to help teachers understand the science behind climate change. Would heat let cash stand in the way of purchasing a second-round pick? Is there a reason for the Heat not to buy their way into the second round of the NBA draft? Some Venezuelans are spending virtually all their time waiting in line for rationed gasoline. We don't even think about food, says one. Gas lines that last for days on end. Despite having the world's largest crude reserves, Venezuela is running out of fuel, forcing people to skip work and take their children out of school. The recent news that sunscreen ingredients can soak into your bloodstream has caused concern, but you should be more worried about skin cancer. Elizabeth Warren has a lot of plans, but could she actually make them happen? If Mitch McConnell leads the Senate, the filibuster still exists, and there are divisions among her own party. Another American tourist recently died in the Dominican Republic, the U.S. State Department confirms. National teams such as parishes of Jersey and Chagos Islands are affirmations of identity, but there's no politics on the pitch. Aurora Innovation was founded in 2017 by former executives of Google, Tesla, and Uber. Fiat Chrysler has now reached an agreement to source self-driving technology from the California startup. Jack Dorsey wants to fix Twitter, and these two execs are trying to make it happen. "50 years ago, a Scottish landscape architect revolutionized." I think I read that already. Why Amazon could be trumped. Tech and antitrust. Big tech lumping instinct here, I think, will lead people astray. Even though the world saw a significant reputation regression last year in the global business community, these are the 5 most reputable companies. The decriminalization of psychedelic drugs is underway. Such moves should be welcomed. Magic mushrooms should be decriminalized. President Trump has made 11,000 false or misleading claims in 900 days. Wow, it's crazy. No other presidents have mastered television like Ronald Reagan and Barack Obama. Elizabeth Warren has a plan for, well, almost everything. Let me read that. At some stages, the influences that have pushed down bond yields will weaken. Long-term interest rates will surely rise again. The long-term decline in bond yields enters a new phase. What will happen when interest rates eventually start to rise again? The Harley-Davidson CEO is leading an all-American company through a global trade war. Parenting Without Pity. At Town Hall Seattle will feature a panel of parents with disabilities talking about how families with and without disabilities can forge ties, how they can support both each other and children with special needs. Bike lanes improve safety for all road users, but cities like Baltimore, which has been removing lanes, aren't getting the message. A comprehensive study of crash and street design data from 12 cities finds that roads with protected bike lanes make cycling and driving safer. What's wrong with the current stock market? Maybe it's time for a reset. A working paper has tracked broader changes to Islamophobia sentiment in Liverpool. A newborn was left to die 26 years ago. A mother's arrest has led to baffling new questions. America's largest retailer sued for selling fake medicine. New York voters strongly oppose tightening vaccination requirements but oppose granting driver's licenses to unauthorized immigrants, according to poll. Hundreds of thousands protest. I think I read that. Nissan finds Renault's new stance on the matter most forgettable, as such a stance runs counter to the company's efforts to improve its corporate governance. How to stop governments borrowing behind their people's backs. Stop secret loans. The allure of pocket neighborhoods. Pocket neighborhoods are a growing trend across the United States and Canada. They create a friendly, supportive community for people in many. It's a nice picture. I like that. Heard on the street, millennial travelers prefer to spend on adventures rather than upscale hotel rooms. Can travel companies cash in on this trend? The acting budget chief for the White House has called delay in Hawaii ban is sought by White House budget chief. 6 men convicted in rape of 8-year-old girl that shocked India. Nationalist movements are. Agree with Ben Thompson that Google seems to have a lot more to worry about from antitrust regulation than other tech companies. The big tech lumping instinct here, I think, will lead people astray. If you listen to my interview, you'll see there's a strong case that we really want in tech domain is new legislation, like how there's a specific body of broadcast TV, radio regulations beyond generic antitrust. In San Jose, the city agreed to create a new use category entirely for the project. To our knowledge, this is the first dedicated co-living zoning code to be established in the U.S., says Eli Sokol, Star City's development manager. That's really nice. Star City's plans to build 800-unit, 18-story dorm for adults to help affordability house Silicon Valley's booming workforce. Well, that's really nice. I like that. I like that a lot. Wish I could live there. And that's enough for now. So maybe this episode wasn't as in-depth as I wanted it, but in the future I hope to make it better. Please follow Market Urbanism on Twitter. He does excellent work.